have to do it yourself.
Yeah. Great. So let's get started, and I'm sure we will have more participants to join along the way. So first of all, thank you all for joining today's session. So this is the third time we all meet together. So Moria and I are delighted that this community is starting to form, and we are very thankful that some of you are volunteering to share some of your research in progress or some of the work you have been doing over the past months or the past year. So I will just share my screen just for a few slides, and then I will leave the floor to our speaker today. So yeah, just for some of you who may be new or who are joining today, so just a little bit to reflect on why we are here. So the idea was to bring people interested, KMers interested in the field of or interested in research or interested in further I mean, being aware about what are some of new research in the field, also being interested to be part of some collaborative project related to KM to get together. So we are really welcome any kind of activities, of discussions. We started the past webinars by having some of you share their current research, but in the future we may evolve the format based on what you're most excited about or where this community leads us. So just to give you some the upcoming dates on when we will be meeting. So we will be meeting on June 21st, our next meeting, same time, and so we will share with you again the link and some information. Then we will not have any session in July, and we will meet again on August 17th. So we already have the speaker for our next session, thanks to Dr. David Williams, who is with us today, and he will share his recent research he has done on social capital in contemporary project teams. And I believe, David, that's the research you conducted for your PhD. And so we are delighted that you accepted to present your work at the next session. So don't miss it. And yes, so one thing also, some of you already have joined the WhatsApp groups that we have. So there has not been much happening lately, but hopefully we will try to keep it more active and more engaging. So if some of you are interested to join the group, you can scan this QR code, and or you can just I can share again the link later on through the chat, so you can add us as part of the list. Great. Yes, Moria, would you like to share anything before I leave the floor to Manfred?
No need. I'm your assistant. I'm your server. You're doing everything wonderful.
Okay, thank you so much, Moria. Okay, so I'm very excited and very delighted that Dr. Manfred accepted to be our speaker for today. I mean, I've worked and I know Manfred for a long time, and he has been doing all kind of interest research for KMJN and also on his side. And I'm sure, as he will explain to you very soon, the idea of this topic more or less emerged from the last session discussions that we had. And I found it to be also quite a very interesting topic to explore, some things that I never thought about also closely before. And so Manfred nicely accepted to take this idea further and to broaden it a little bit more, to talk about KM policies in general, and if we need them or not, and what kind of policies should be in place in organization. And I mean, Manfred started to share a bit with me what he's planning to do, but it's very likely to be a very interactive session. And so I'm really looking forward to listen to you, Manfred. And please feel free. I mean, that's again a friendly environment. Feel free to ask question lively or to put your question in the chat, and we will try to make it as engaging as possible. So Manfred, the floor is yours. Thank you again so much, and looking forward to this session with you today.
Thank you, Vincent. This is a great opportunity. I really appreciate this format and that we can have a kind of exchange. I would like to have the word of collaboration, the guiding principle of this talk. So we are now 20 people in this call. So it's not a huge group, but it's a nice group, I would say. So we can have some interaction as well. I prepared a few slides, and I really would like to be open and working on a topic that this group KMGN triggered in me for a couple of months and probably years already. So this is current research, and probably you have to be a little bit generous on some final ends. This is work in progress, so I don't have all the answers, but really would like to get your feedback and your inputs as well. But I think the question of knowledge management policies is an important one. Yeah. So I prepared a few slides, and I suggested I share them with you. Okay. Then in case there is something, just interrupt me. That is absolutely okay, I would say. And making sense. So I hope this should be the presentation mode now. And I see, Vincent, you give me some guiding in case there's some problem. Yeah. So this is the headline. I hope you can see the slides, Vincent. Yes. Wonderful. Just a few words on myself. I think I met a few of you already, but definitely not all of you. So I did a few publications on knowledge management myself, and I'm really proud on one publication, which is in a context of, a big name. This was a textbook by Nonaka, Handbook of Organizational Learning and Knowledge. This is from my university background when I started 20 years ago. And I'm really happy that a few others, publication came here. In this context of KMGN, there's the Blue Book of Knowledge Management, the status quo. I appreciate that people participated and shared their data, so we know a little bit more on knowledge management. My own journey is a consulting journey and a teaching journey, and I'm in the field for a couple of years now, working as a consultant. Obviously, my main focus is to help organizations to identify their knowledge assets. We call them intellectual capital or intangible assets. I'm sure you're familiar with that terminology. So there's a timeline. And I try to, document parts of my own experiences as good as I can. Not everything is perfect, but there's a hard work. And this documentation work for me is usually a huge opportunity to learn. I appreciate to have this kind of feedback from the academic community, but I clearly see myself not as a full academic, but as a kind of bridge builder. I try to build the bridges between application and conceptual backgrounds, but I think the consulting work really benefits if we have a sound theoretical foundation. This is absolutely the context I would like to share. And sometimes, I'm teaching in a bunch of universities. Sometimes my students say, this is too theoretical. Yeah, and probably you heard that message already, but I think if we have a good theory, then that is really helping us a lot. So that's enough on me. This is the agenda for today. I would like to do a little review and probably give that like 20 minutes. I would like to rush through that and then come to the topic of KM policy. I prepared a document I would like to share with you, a PDF document where you can see my best knowledge of knowledge management policies, and I would like to discuss that with you. I prepared a little survey, so probably we can get some first-hand experience and insight from your point as well. We can use different formats as well. I have prepared a mirror board, but I think we can just keep it like that as well. So this is the context, and my problem here is how can we handle contradictions? This is the basic starting point. How can we handle contradictions? Because, for example, in the company context, you are about to maximize, for example, business value. Well, we have to increase value, obviously, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But then we hear people who would like to have a good work-life balance. And I'm not sure how a work-life balance can be maximized, but you see where this is heading for. But the problem is that there is some kind of tension or sometimes a contradiction as well. So there's another contradiction, like let's create knowledge, let's create whatever inside. And here we have two dimensions of ownership. This is the intellectual property part. Like, this is my knowledge, my property, versus the other dimension of open source. And I'm sure you're familiar with that kind of discussion. But again, for me, this is a kind of contradiction. And when implementing knowledge management in organizations, we come on that problem, let's create, and then there's this ownership problem. I will come back to that as well. And there's another one. I had a talk with Vadim the other day when we were talking about developing KMGN as a community, So I see there's a lot of loyal people working in KMG context. So to whom are we loyal? Is this a company? Or this could be a country as well, or an institution, or are we sharing knowledge within an organization or a community of practice? I think that is another very interesting part. And if you see, for example, the function of an organization, I make here just a pyramid, there's the top, and knowledge management is somewhere here or wherever you want it, and then the problem is that knowledge managers like today are talking to other knowledge managers who are not part of the same company usually. So the loyalty problem now is, if I share critical knowledge with people from outside my organization, that affects the maximization domain here, to create business value, because I share knowledge which is maybe or maybe not the property of my organization. See, and these are lots of little contradictions, and they are, I think, a little bit problematic. So when we implement knowledge management in organizations, then this is the critical part. This is the absolute more critical part than the instruments. We did a survey in the context of my German friends, the Community for Knowledge Management in Germany. We covered the implementation of knowledge management with the ISO 9001. You know that story when knowledge and competences became part of that standard world. I will come back to that. And this is a little survey we did. So there's a huge, return on answers. This is a collection of 4 years. So probably the real value should be a little bit more than 220, but, there's always the incentive to boost the numbers. But anyway, I aggregated, these numbers, and it's not the same organizations answering. So I think it's okay and fair to say it's almost 1,000 answers. So we have lots of instruments for knowledge management, and I'm not covering that in detail, but you see the green. The green part means we are using that. Unfortunately, and this is, I think, common knowledge in this group, there is the implementation part. This is not extremely high. So we have a few, like document management systems, which are related to knowledge management somehow. But the majority, this is the red lines here on the upper right, the majority of organizations do not really apply knowledge management. And I think this is not a problem because we don't have the instruments, but because we do not really support our knowledge management fellows on how to communicate that and how to align it to business needs. So the critical question, I think, is quite simple. What is the right attitude? What is the right way to achieve and to best support the knowledge management and the organizational strategy? We were talking about business-aligned knowledge management in another project. This is led by Pavel Kraus. And I see, for example, Bart being here in that group already. So we are a small group working on that business aligned knowledge management. But I think the basic line is, how are we supporting results? And again, it's not a matter of instruments, but I think it's a matter of culture. Vadim and Olga are talking a lot about that. It's a matter of code of conduct and behavior. But the problem then is, where is it documented? Where can I get a quick introduction to know what we do over here? So a policy document could be like a short introduction to learn quickly what it is, how we do it here. So this is the message, and this is the essence I would really like to share. But I think that's quite common knowledge. So we start and use standards like the ISO standards, the British standards, or in German, the German interpretations of the ISO standards, which are not always the same. It's I think 99%, but it's not always the same. But it's still, yeah. And I really believe in textbooks. The pure academics here, they prefer the papers. But from the application point of view, I really like textbooks a lot because are telling a lot how you can do that. And from an implementation part, this is just great. I have a personal history on systems thinking. This is a little bit fussy for some people, but I think it has a long tradition as well. So the way how we can better use knowledge in organizations is to identify, to visualize it, to assess it, and to systematically develop it. I think that's quite simple. And I hope this is finding agreement in this group. My own approach to that policy part, I will come back to that in a second, was triggered by the context of COVID, because the resilience term was important to us. How can we apply knowledge management to make organizations more resilient? And then, something poor happened. We did not go to the company anymore. We had to stay at home, and all the trouble. I will not cover the details, but you saw that we had to handle that resilience problem. We did a lot of systematic review and research on that, and I share a few images just to run through that, how that standard for resilience, is supported by questions. So I think there are there are 6 topics, like, for example, strengthen the organization. I think that is relating to lots of our strategic business problems, right? We would like to strengthen the organization. That's the same as creating value, essentially. I think that's the same, yeah? Or we would like to be informed. So then there is the British standards, 65,000. This is supporting those questions. And I think people who are working with that standards are absolutely fine. But we can move on and see, we did some research on the standard of 3041. This is supporting these questions. See, this is the question number 24 and all the others, and they are supporting these resilience questions. What we did in Germany not last year, in 2019, is to develop a Dean spec. I will tell you a little bit more about that later on. It's coded 9143. So this is similar, but a little bit more hands-on, and we are talking about the policy, how to do knowledge management, how to combine that with resilience. So you see lots of arrows, lots of connections, and this is really supporting, sorry, this was too fast, the joint idea of making an organization better. But I would like to not stay here, but move on to the next step and find out how organizations can help their employees to better support that. And I think there are 2 approaches available here now. And now let's come back to the research mode again. I think in theory, we have the principal agent theory. This is from organization theory. The agency theory is defined as a principal, somebody who has a problem or task, an enterprise, and resources, yeah, and wants the agent to do something. I think this is essentially the nutshell, right? I will not cover the principal agent theory in detail, but just refer to it as one of the sources. See, there's another approach to come to decision making. The principle, it has a problem because of information asymmetries and special interests of the agent. And the problem then is that he needs to have some, cost to make the agent do what he really wants. And you have contracts and all the details that the business interests are aligned. Then Bornemann came up with an idea of stewardship theory. And the assumption here is, and I see that a lot among the people participating in the Knowledge Management Global Network, that they are acting like stewards with great trust in accomplishing the corporate goal. So in that kind of theory, there is no gap between what an organization wants or should accomplish and what the agent, the steward, is doing. So there is no divergence. And the long-term interests are aligned. Again, I don't want to go into details, but this is, I think, the basic fundamental, to have one hypothesis. And the hypothesis for knowledge management policy means that sometimes our interests are not the same. And coming back to my first slide, we have contradictions. The principal is not doing the same as the agent, or the principal has different expectation than the agent. And in knowledge management, all of us are experts, and the other one, they don't know what we know. And this is a problem, so we have a challenge, and we should come to a point where knowledge management is helping to overcome that and better allow knowledge to be supporting corporate strategic objectives. So I think this is the theoretical foundation. But I have an even deeper one, and this is the basic philosophy. And you see here the headlines. Karl Marx was one of them, and John Stuart Mill is another one. So if we focus, I need to just clear up here a little bit on the ownership problem of knowledge management. Then you see again that we have very different ideas about knowledge management and ownership between those two philosophies. Again, I will not go into the philosophical details. You probably read them or you did not, but this should not be a philosophy class. But I think we find lots of evidence in those very old literature, that there is ownership of knowledge or there is not ownership of knowledge. And that has an impact if we talk today about open source, for example. That's absolutely the same philosophic or value problem in my point of view. Just checking on the chat, just give me a second. Yeah, the knowledge maturity model is relevant as well. Wonderful. I'm just clicking that. So the responsibility of knowledge management is another dimension. And if we focus on the old philosophers, you see, in the Marx tradition, it's a collective effort. Yeah, so it's the group versus in the more liberal economy, it's the individual. So there's different responsibility, and knowledge management, in my point of view, has a lot to do with responsibilities. So if there's somebody responsible, some others might have benefits. Yeah, and who is the main beneficiary? For Marx, I think it's quite obvious, it's society, and for Mill, it's the creators or the enterprises, the entrepreneur. So there's a very huge divergence again on who is benefiting. Another topic in most of the standards is risk. Yeah, who is bearing the risk? Who is covering the cost? And in Marx tradition, this is the collective. Yeah, and coming back to our COVID experience a couple of years ago, the collective is still paying that, that risk, I would say. In the liberal tradition of Mill, the individual is running the risk, as well as, of course, having the benefits. So now let's find the final line, the benefit or the implication on society. For Marx, it would be the free access to knowledge, like the open source. And for Mill, it would be the enterprises who benefit from social progress. Because if we're becoming more productive, the flood is raising all ships, as we keep saying. I think this is the critical part where we now have some connection to the values and the economic foundations of the philosophy. Now, this is one part. I would like to have it a little bit more complex, and come to the German tradition on corporate ethics and corporate governance. And there we have two authors. And this table is a little bit complex, so I open it here. Yeah, I have two authors called Karl Hohmann. He is in the tradition of John Stuart Mill. So these people are more on the liberal side. And then there's Peter Ulrich, another German philosopher, an author on ethics. And he is working more in the direction that the ethical positioning should be the main ambition of an organization. So it's not profit seeking, but acting responsibly. So you see a different prioritization of ethical decision making between Hohmann and Ulrich. I would not like to make a direct connection to Marx and Ulrich, but they are a little bit more connected, obviously, than Ulrich to John Stuart Mill. Again, I will not cover all the details here, but I think it's quite interesting to have the impact on perspectives, and this is helping me to find out about the different priorities on knowledge management policies. Because if you're influenced, for example, by a more liberal perspective, then knowledge management policy would look very different than if you have a communitarian approach to political theory, for example. So this is where we start, and I think the answer is quite simple for all of you. The answer should be our friend from Greece, Aristotle, and he is advocating the way of the middle. Yeah. So my idea was not to suggest a strict knowledge management policy following either the liberal course or the communitarian way, but maybe draft a knowledge management position and policy that is following in the middle. So what would be the benefits of a good knowledge management policy? The benefits would be the better capture, share, and leverage knowledge assets. I think this is the corporate context. For means of comprehensiveness, I have two more organizations or institutions. This is the public or the governmental institutions, or probably research institutions. For them, the leverage of knowledge assets is probably not the same, but they are still increasing their efficiency and effectiveness. So it's, I think, a matter of discovering, for example, new groundbreaking insight, but the application of it, like the marketing of this, is more on the company side. And then we have the communities, like, for example, this knowledge management global network is. And here we promote knowledge, we share and collaborate among members. So this is a closed circle, even though it's open, but effectively it's closed. And there are different effects. Sharing anonymously, like with the internet, is a different story than sharing in a corporate context. So I think we should be aware of the different implications, because that relates, Vincent, to the discussion you had last time when you were talking about I'm missing a presentation here. I'm missing a slide. I would like to make a reference to knowledge hiding, which was the topic last time. Yeah. So if I have the expectation that my knowledge is stolen, there is an incentive, and this was brilliantly described last time by your presenters. So these are the benefits, and I think this is right now high time to come to the policy. I have a tradition in a German context, which is not very well known globally, on knowledge management models and theories. That's why I will have two slides on the model based, because coming from the theory, I think it's good to deduce the categories for knowledge management policy. So this is the model. We have an organization defined by this border, coming from the autopoiesis idea. An organization is defined by the border, right? And we have a culture. Like, you cannot have a culture, you cannot have no culture. So I'm here in the tradition of Edgar Schein and all the other anthropologists, we cannot have not a culture. Then important for the enterprise or business aligned approach is the targets. We are focusing for some value creation, right? Now, the knowledge management part starts because we have people. These people are in the knowledge domain. They are exchanging knowledge in communities. And the central assumption is that we have people performing some tasks and projects and processes with each other. They are using data. And you know that, so this, you see the very old symbols. This model was conceived in the 2004. So that's why we still have those old disks, which are no longer relevant. We have the cloud right now, but it doesn't change on the system, on the assets, you know. And the critical part is the action. Now we are working in processes. We are using knowledge as input, then refine it to generate output. I think that's quite simple, and that's it with the theory model. Now, this is the most important slide. What could be the elements for knowledge management policy? So I started with the foundations, value creation, avoidance of contradictions, and then the very basic philosophic differences between communism and liberalism, and coming to the knowledge management models. And now we are on the position to derive some attributes for a knowledge management policy. I'm checking on the chat. Nicholas is telling something, just a second. Oh yeah, I agree. They're not so different in terms of knowledge management, but you know, public organizations have a different kind of focus on making money, you know, or providing service. They have a different hierarchy of financial and non-financial motives. So I agree, the knowledge management part of public administrations is not so different. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the critical slide. So let's focus on this. I said that an organization should create some value, right? And this means that an organization or a knowledge management policy should do something to create knowledge assets, right? This is a lot related to ownership in my point of view. When discussing with SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises and entrepreneurs, this ownership is extremely important. So they would like to emphasize the difference between your knowledge and my knowledge and our knowledge. And sometimes, if you are in the startup position, their not so secret idea is to maximize the value again you can earn from selling your enterprise or your startup, right? So creating value means this is ownership related. Yeah, but there can be a different approach, obviously, like in KMGN network, in the knowledge management global network, we would like to create some common good. This is, I think, a very good motivation, but very different interpretations on ownership. Yeah. Then I think we have this very big topic of ethics and responsibility. For me, that relates to the cultural layer. Yeah? We need to have a kind of framework that supports our employees and partners, our team members, to collaborate ethically, sustainably. Otherwise, we are in game theory and have the inclination to cheat in the last round of the game. You know that will not cover the game theory part here. Obviously, another stakeholder group is customers. They are outside. Yeah? They are not inside this organization, but they are outside. And suppliers, they are supporting us with new knowledge, and with they are receiving our kind of knowledge related services. Then the elements for the knowledge management policy should cover people, see? And I think this makes absolutely sense. If we do not take care, for example, on the needs of people, on their learning needs, for example, their career development parts, as well as on recognition, for example, then they will not support us or will not be able to support us properly. And the final part is operational excellence. I think this is absolutely related to the knowledge management part, but we will not focus on quality management. We will not focus on business excellence, because this is another topic. Is this making sense to you that we should cover in a knowledge management policy topics like that? Can we just make a change and give me a break a little bit? Anybody would like to comment here? Is that making sense to you? Vincent, may I ask you as the host?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Or have I lost
yes.
all of you?
No, you have not lost all of us. I mean, you have covered already a lot of very interesting
Sure.
topic, but this one is, I think it's a good, easy one to relate to. Yeah, so I think different layers, as you said, might require, I mean, different type of policy. I mean, the asset, as you said, is, I mean, might be tangible or intangible, right? I mean, some of it might be turned into tangible, and I think that's what you're reflecting by your assets here. We are more tangible, and the people management might indirectly help to support the indirect management of this intangible asset, or this intangible knowledge, or this tacit knowledge that we refer to. And yeah, so I think as you said, the behavior or the attitude of people are more reflected into the culture. But I'm not sure that you can really put some policies on the culture itself, right? I mean, you can. I mean, you can try to develop as much as possible a knowledge sharing culture, but
absolutely,
you cannot enforce it, right? So at the end of the day, it's up to people to feel engaged and encouraged and motivated to share or not.
Thank you, Vincent. This is what I forgot to mention, because for me, in the tradition of Shine, the culture is supported by all those elements. So if you, for example, create an environment that is helping our team members to progress and to excel, to develop, then this is the culture. The aggregation is a kind of culture that is helping organizations to accomplish the knowledge management goals. Yeah, so the culture is kind of you cannot create the culture per se, but the culture is a kind of interdependency of those policies. Moria.
Thank you. I think that, first of all, when we speak about people management, it's not only culture, it's also policies of how, who we want, how do we bring people in, how, what are the principles of who we want to add in and what, and who we do not want to add in, what are our borders, how do we treat those who are guests, how do we treat those who are members, etc. There's a lot to do with people management, not only culture. A. B, I think that culture is not only in the air, it's based on principles that we decide that are the right principles, the right values, I may say. And I believe that defining the values is part of the policy.
Yes. Or the business value, Moria, if I understand, they are, in my point of view, given outside the knowledge management policy, because you have a strategy, you have a corporate vision statement, and you have corporate values as well. And I would keep them a little bit independent from our knowledge management policy, but I would like to relate to those values. If we have to start to define values from a knowledge management project, then, well, yeah, I wouldn't call it this is a mature organization, but okay, in a mature organization, they have some ideas about the corporate values. Would you agree, Moria? But they must be aligned. I agree. Can't hear you.
Must be aligned. However, I'm not sure as to the word mature, because every organization has to have its values. Maybe it's easier to see them when you're at the beginning, you say what values you want to have. When you're more mature, you can look at the current state and say, these are the values we have. But again, you can say that you want to maybe change them or develop them, so you can revisit your values. So it's a different look. It's a different way you look at the values, but values are important. And I think that if we speak about the policies, to my belief, they're one of the most important parts that drive all the others, and important to maybe put on a paper, because when we're speaking about procedures, we're speaking about putting things on the paper so they really will be agreed, and not only everyone will have his or her interpretation.
Exactly. But it really helps to have a value statement, to have some values written down.
Yes.
Ideally, all agree to them, and most of them of our teams are involved in creating that kind of value statements. But you know, if this is an organization, this is already existing like 10 years, for example, and I'm a new employee, then, well, I can influence it from today. But there is a history already, and this is either this or that direction, and I can make a decision by probably not signing an employment contract. Yeah, but I think that that really is connected nicely for me. Now I would come back to the standards, just 2 slides, I think, come back to the knowledge management standards, and then uncover what the knowledge management policy should be. The ISO 3041 calls in the statement in the section 5.2 for this knowledge management policy, and I'm sure you are familiar with that. Yeah, so there are this is the requirement of a knowledge management policy, which should be appropriate. Yeah, it should work as a framework for the organization. It should satisfy regulation and other requirements from, I think, legal parties. The policy should set expectation, and you see, this is a requirements document. So it's not telling what exactly that should be, you know, it's just a requirement. And I think that's a huge development, because, okay, think about that. What is the framework? How do we deliver on the expectations? And how do we balance different ideas about knowledge sharing and knowledge protection? The ownership problem I was elaborating just a few minutes ago. So there is this standard, and then I've seen Patrick Lamb's work, which was published a few days ago, I think. Yeah, and unfortunately, he's not really happy, you know, with the level of support for implementation. And when you read the standard, I think this is making sense, and he's really providing lots of reasons. So he's giving additional material. So the standard is telling us the requirements and not really helping us in implementing it. Moria, would you like to comment?
Yes, several comments. First of all, looking at the standard is a great idea, because the standard is really policies, and or the idea of a standard is not telling you what to do, but telling you that if you decide what you want to do, this is excellence, and these are the vectors you have to take. Yeah. So I think that also when we look at KMGN, because if KMGN is a network of networks, the taking the idea of more a standard approach than a specific approach, saying this is how sharing should look, but saying we want sharing on these are the values and these are the policies, and let's say exactly how things will work, I think will be more beneficial for any group that is a network of networks and has many people and many networks inside and different agendas. A. B, as to Patrick's book, I've read it. I've read every word and word of it. I was the inside editor of reviewer of the edition of the Harvard Business School. So they asked me to read it in order to have audit. So it was written something like 2 years ago already, or a year and a half ago. So it's not really new. And that saying that the standard was not yet implemented is a very natural thing, because it takes time. So Patrick speaks about a lot of things. I think it's less relevant to this discussion, because really I know what he's writing about. It's very little about the standard itself, and when he's writing these lines is rather an early stage of its employment. Deployment.
I was intrigued by the by the second title, knowledge management implementation. So this is what is my connection to the knowledge management part, the knowledge management policy part. So you could take, I mean, 100 sources. I took Patrick's because it was appearing randomly on my table last week. Could have been the other one as well, you know. So this is just an effort to appreciate people from the network. Could have been another one as well. Yeah,
I think that Patrick is bringing here something very important. I think it's like an encyclopedia for understanding the idea of auditing in general and specifically related to knowledge management. So it looks at different perspectives of auditing, and auditing is a base of, when you understand where you are, it's a base for going forward. So you can understand the different stages where you are, and you have different perspectives and different reasons why to do it and different levels of details. But anytime you do it, it is an engine for taking you forward. And that's the big saying. I think that's why that's the subtitle of the book. And because and I would recommend that anyone that wants to understand the concept of auditing, run and read this book. And the subtitle is saying, yes, and it's a good way to implement. And that's where I would stop here regarding our discussion.
I have another one, the last slides to the next topic, which is the Dean spec, which some of you might have seen. It is more oriented to small and medium-sized enterprises. It should be available for you if you Google on Dean spec. I can post a link as well, but then I have to interrupt my presentation. So this guideline is available on in English and for free. This is the important part, contrary to the ISO 3041 standard, which is, I think there are a few dollars for that. Yeah. So this one is available for free. And yeah, here is the link, but unfortunately, that's not of use for you because you don't have the presentation. So I'm sorry for that. The idea here is to help organizations to move that little step and support the knowledge management systems for small and medium-sized enterprises. And we had a huge discussion if there is a huge difference between SMEs and large companies. And well, there is, obviously, but the knowledge management part, you know, is having similar principles, I would say. So handling of knowledge management, of knowledge and using, creating, retaining knowledge, these are the same challenges, but they're a little bit more difficult if you're working on a global scale. So we would like to prepare a little, you know, introduction for a smaller level and the more how-to guidelines here. But again, the policy management, the policies on how to handle knowledge is relevant here as well. So if we agree that we have some requirements, then a policy for knowledge management could build on those dimensions and clarify a few points. I will skip these slides because it's stakeholder oriented and draft here a document. And this is what I wanted to share with you. I uploaded it on the drive. So you have access to 5 pages. Just a second, I interrupt my my presentation to give you the drive link. Where is this? Just a second. This should be the link. I'm copying the link and share it in the chat so all of you could have access to that. Okay. I hope this is available for you. And this is a draft which emerged from the discussion. And the ownership problem was dominant in this group. So probably there might be some changes. Mentioned this is research in progress in the kind of hierarchy or in the weight of these topics. But I think there are a few dimensions, and you can read them in the document I shared with you, and I copied them into this presentation here. So the first should be some hints on clarification of knowledge related to me as a person, my knowledge as an expert, and our knowledge as a company. Then we have, of course, the same problem for suppliers, and protecting the knowledge of our customers. We should encourage monetization of knowledge. I think this is a very important hint and topic of knowledge management policy, and systematic reuse and automation. So I think the policy could work like this. There are very short statements. I have an elaborated version, a more elaborated version that explains the rule. You should do that. The second is a statement on why you should do that. And the third is a reflection about the consequences. But this Zoom presentation right now, I think, is not the right format to share tons of text, but I try to keep it to the headlines here. But, this is what I really would like to exchange with you now. Find out if this kind of ideas related to ownership and stakeholder perspectives of knowledge is making sense to you. If this is helping us to better understand what an employee of an organization should do. For example, I have to move my Zoom panel here. If we encourage the identification and exploration of opportunities to monetize our knowledge assets, this may including licensing, consulting service, or product development that leverage our expertise. I think this is very simple. It's extremely simple, but it gives guidance to an organization that we do or we don't do licensing, for example. Now, an organization should probably adjust that, obviously, and I hear Moria, this must be done and implemented in our organization individually, and for each organization different. So this is just a blueprint, probably, and not even that, it's only a draft. Some organization would like to do a consulting service. If they do some products like hardware, then the consulting and training part could be an option to monetize the knowledge. For example, having a good interaction with the customer is an option to use the feedback of the product application in situ, in the place, and to learn how to better prepare knowledge-based products for the customers. And I think ultimately it leverages our expertise. So these are very short statements on a policy level. I see some of you are reading. I have 4 more pages because there are 4 or 5 chapters altogether. So this is
Manfred, maybe if we just stay a little bit on this first page.
Sure.
I mean, just I think trying to reflect on the first statement, my knowledge and company knowledge. I mean, it looks quite difficult to find out, I mean, what kind of knowledge everyone brings when they join an organization, and what kind of knowledge do they develop. I mean, some knowledge might be obvious because I work on a project, and the knowledge associated to this project is easy to identify, but there might be a lot of know-how or a lot of experience that they gain, which might be much more difficult to identify. And people nowadays learn all the time, right? I mean, they learn at work, but they are part also of the KMJN community. So they're going to learn from today's session. So what they've learned tonight, I mean, should it still be because they are employed during the day by an organization? Should it still also be part of the knowledge of the organization? So I don't know if you could elaborate a little bit on this, or see what others also are thinking just on this first initial point.
Vincent, thank you for that reminder. I think it's absolutely crucial because this is the difference between having just a freelance hired hand who is working and investing time or adding capacity, which we as a team do not have. So this person can be replaced easily. And maybe there is an option to say the knowledge is not really relevant. This person is just doing something anybody could do, but replacing you as a professor, in your Bangkok University context would be a little bit more difficult, I would say. Yeah, don't take me wrong, but you can be replaced probably, yeah, but not that easy as probably your assistants or your students. Yeah, so this is what I would like to say. And last point, getting you as an expert is different than getting somebody else, and then respecting the different knowledge you add to our team or do not add to our team because you're just a hired hand. I think this is important to clarify. And in a partnership context, this is made explicit. In a hired hand, interim management position, whatever, say, oh, you're just filling in and you get your couple $100 or $1,000 and that's it. Vincent?
Yeah. Okay. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah.
For knowledge management, I think that's absolutely crucial. And the big difference to regular management, where I just need hands, doing whatever anybody could do. And this is the important part. That's why I really struggle so hard to find a position for knowledge management, which is not the same as general management or organization development, finding procedures or automation. Doing a robot can do wonderful productivity jobs. But this is not a knowledge job, And this is why we should make it clear that I hire you because of your competence, and special skills, and not because you're just a body being here, And the implications are clear, It makes sense, for example, in career development. This is on the people part. Let me jump to the people part. See, this is the people management, where we talk about upgrading skills, So if an organization is valuing the skills, like your skills or not your skill, that has an impact on the training. If we have people here just for like 3 months, then the incentive to invest in their knowledge is not high. And I think this is not a long-term commitment. This is quite obvious among us, but if we state it here, say you get you are an investment for us and we invest in you as you invest in the company, this is reciprocal, then together we are in a long-term commitment. Very different to say, hey, I have here a 1-year contract and then find some other opportunities, Very different. Moria.
Yes. First of all, I've read what you've written, this draft. I've now printed it.
Yeah, wow, you're fast.
Sketched it at least. Very impressive. And very, very impressive. 2 words, very impressive. But I want to say what is missing here for me, because this is oriented to the individual. And if I build a policy of knowledge management for organizations, I'm more concerned not with a personal view, not with the individuals, rather with the regular managers, the daily managers. And the most important, there are several things that I would write in a policy, but the most important is, first of all, having a chapter or even having a document of policy for knowledge management for the management of the organization. And in it, the most important part I would start with is declaring that the same way that anyone who is in charge of some discipline is not only in charge of the relations with the customers, with the authorities, and with the people underneath, he or she are also responsible for the knowledge that relates to this discipline. And therefore, they are in charge of retaining it, sharing it, and organizing it, and continually developing it. And I think that this is the most important sentence, telling the CFO, you are in charge of the finance knowledge, telling the engineering CXO, you are in charge of all the engineering. It's not the KM problem, it's their responsibility.
Absolutely. I have it probably hidden a little bit here in the internal knowledge repositories. I didn't write finance or quality or production or marketing knowledge, but this internal knowledge transfer. And there's another one, the leadership part, supporting high potentials, like for the internal career development. And I have another dimension. Let me flip down to this one, caring for knowledge management per se. I think this is important, like you argued, Maria, like the whole organization should work on the highest knowledge management professional standards, you know? So this is, I think, the C-level part. Probably we could change the wording a little bit, but here, I think this is the leadership part. What I added here, and this should not be hidden, you know, is an explicit statement, because we were talking about principal agents before, yeah, and stewards. And I think this must be decided in an organization. So explicitly, this is the stewardship theory. Like, we are taking care for the organization and for the knowledge. This is a very different approach than I have a one-year contract. I take as much knowledge as I can from, for example, this university department, and then I move on to do a startup. You know, very different idea, and it's a normative statement. Now, there's another one on the excellence part. Like, we are developing sound different business processes, and depending, coming back to your finance example, I think this should be what you refer to. We should document our processes and transfer the knowledge relevant for this particular process, be it finance or production or sales, whatever. Yeah. So I think the combination of those policies, they are not the same as the knowledge management system, but just the policy, what to do, how to do it, how to behave. The system per se, I think, is something very different. Do you agree, Maria?
I agree that the system is different than the policy. Okay. I again think that your policy is individual regarding to we as an organization. And I think that not only the C-level, but all the management levels should have their policy not sitting or not hiding behind that we as an organization, but you specifically are in charge of. You as a unit division manager are responsible of. I think that the same way you have individual and we as an organization, I think that the more important or the complementing one would be you as a manager, or having a policy for the managers on all levels.
Maria, may I ask, because this dialogue is cool, what is the difference to the job description? Because I would assume that these requirements are part of the job description, for example, for the C-level finance person.
I wish they would. If I'll ask you, if we'll check 50, 100 organizations and check their job description, let's see how many of them have a sentence saying he is in charge of retaining, sharing, organizing, and developing the knowledge of this discipline. I think that maybe will be one hand, and even not that.
Okay.
And even if it is on some job descriptions, how many of them really feel that that's what they do on a daily job? They're working on the operational level. They're not thinking about the response, and they know they're responsible for the people. But from tomorrow, you're responsible for the people, and you're responsible for the knowledge.
I agree with the general desire, but Maria, I do not agree that the knowledge policy, the knowledge management policy, should be person-specific. It should be, for me, a little bit more general. Like, for example, the quality management policy is not related and addressed to your job or another job, you know, but it's a general policy for our company or for our team, at least. If it's a larger, like, subsidiary or branch, then there could be different regulation than in another country, for example. But I see the policy as high level, and then the job description as a connector to say, in accordance to our knowledge management policy, you are supposed to use the knowledge management systems and the other quality management and reporting systems and procedures to do some knowledge-specific stuff. Yeah. So I see
suggest we take it offline, Manfred, because I'm not sure everyone is already with us. But I do believe, I didn't mean writing the job description in the policies. I think that it's great having a policy that is oriented to the individual. I think there should be another policy or a few additional chapters regarding the policy as to departments, as to divisions, and not only oriented to the individual person, you and us.
Okay. Well, probably we need to discuss that a little bit more in detail, but this is absolutely not a conflict, but I agree that we start with a general policy, and if we break it down to a more detailed level, I'm fine. Yeah. But we have to start somewhere, and the next, I hear you, is don't make it 10 pages, don't make it 100 pages. I hear you.
Policy.
Yeah. So
let's see if we have any other reaction from our participants. I mean, how do you feel about this draft policy? Are there things that surprise you or that you find to be fair, unfair, or logic, not logic, based on your own environment or culture? Please take the mic. Yes. I mean, will you feel comfortable having such kind of policy in your organization?
Yeah, I have one thought or observation here. Can I share my thought here?
Sure, please.
Yeah. So in terms of having an corporate level or enterprise level knowledge management policy, one thing is that it depends on exactly what business or the enterprise wants. First thing is, if they are in fact more knowledge centric organization, or they are going towards knowledge centric organization or not, do they really understand what exactly knowledge management is, and then do they really give us or do they really understand the business value that knowledge management brings in? So probably these are the questions that when a senior management is convinced enough, then we should be able to draft a knowledge management policy as such here. So what I'm speaking here is from an enterprise point of view. When an enterprise says that, okay, we want to become a digital leader, and in becoming a digital leader, one of our key area is to enhance our corporate level knowledge or enterprise level knowledge, to draft a KM policy for the enterprise or not. But if that itself is not there from a business point of view or a leadership point of view, then we from our end as a KM expert or KM practitioner, we will not be able to push that to the organization. That's my thought.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Any other thought about this draft policy?
Vincent, I posted a link, and I really would appreciate if you help me, because Moria mentioned an absolute essential part. There are different perspectives, and this is what I see as the collaboration partner here and the 20 people present. I created a little form, and this is just covering the headlines, and it would help, if we get a kind of shared understanding. How is the temperature right now to those topics? Probably you just click on that Google form, and this is a very simple question. If those topics are covered in your organization, or if they are in conflict with your existing regulation, or if you say, hey, this is really important, we should prioritize that for whatever reason, I think that's quite simple survey. And if you give it 2 minutes, that really would help us to have now data-based interaction with each other. And I hope you have the document so you can read the whole. I gave you only the headlines for the survey, but this is a start. Vincent, what do you think? Is this a way to invest 1 or 2 minutes?
Sure. Let's do that. Yeah? Yes, good idea. Yes.
Yeah. And obviously, I will share the results with all of you. If you send an email, my email is on the top line of the survey. Obviously, you will get the PDF, because the first who pushes the send button, he will not see the whole results, right? The 20th will see the full survey, but this is part of the Google game. So I will create a PDF and send it to you. And I will drop it, yeah, on our shared.
Just a quick feedback. The second column should be not in conflict, right? You currently have in conflict.
No, it should be in conflict because
it seems
covered.
To be not in conflict with our company's other policies.
No, it should. I would keep it in conflict because if I have a policy suggestion which is in conflict, you know, then I have some reason to delete it. If it's not in conflict, I have learned nothing.
Okay, but that's what you wrote above, or maybe I misread it. But the first statement you say this seems to be not in conflict with my company's other policies.
Vincent, you're a genius. Yeah, absolutely.
So you want to know about the conflict or not?
I would like to know about the conflict. Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay,
if there is a problem, then the consequence would be delete it. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. No, just to clarify. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And if there's nothing to delete, then it's fine. You know, it could be irrelevant. Then you just leave it. Yeah. I see 5 answers already, and I'm absolutely delighted. Obviously, we shall give it some time. But is anybody else trying to comment? Sabi, you were asking for how to convince top knowledge management. You know, I think it's just reasonable, you know, to tell people on a short statement like 5 pages, this is the way we would like to have knowledge management be done, you know, and the 5-page summary I think can be read in you have seen it right now in 2 minutes or probably half an hour at max. Yeah, but then people know what is expected from them, and obviously you could do a different kind of policy in your team or organization. So this must be aligned. I don't think this is a blueprint you can copy paste into your knowledge management system and be happy forever. It must be aligned, and there are some consequences. Like, for example, if you do not learn or refuse to get some training, yeah, and so your knowledge becomes outdated. That must have an implication of your career path, right? And that means something, you know, for that person. Or the other way around, if this is done perfectly, then the bonus story can, you know, start as well. So there are implications. But if you say no, we don't have bonuses because they are inflating whatever, yeah, this is another good idea. So, you know, that must be an integrated approach. It's not like, yeah, bonus, that's it. Not. Personally, I would not advise to start with bonus programs, because then you have your compensation package, and the bonus means if I don't get that, I will not do it, you know. So this is not the servant leadership part. I will do it because it's reasonable and because it's required to support our business strategy and value creation story. And yeah, if I will not be able to finish the full story because it's Friday afternoon and I go home, or Saturday afternoons, you know, it depends, then I can't, but I try as hard as I can. Is that making sense for you? Because it's reasonable.
Yeah, that is somewhat making things better. But then again, I will have to think through that reasonable, and then the key takeaways that should convince my senior management to have an all and out KM policy in place for the organization. Yeah,
I see.
So we have. I was told we need to finish on time today, so we still have 13 minutes.
Yeah.
So just for you to manage. Yes. Thank you, Manfred.
I think, Vincent, we are almost done. I see already 9 responses, and why not share my screen again? So I will not have, hopefully, I will not dilute results, but I think 9 results of 20 participants, that's wonderful, isn't it? So this is, I'm sorry. This is the result like it's looking right now, yeah? So for example, systematic knowledge management reuse seems to be in favor. This should be prioritized. What a surprise, you know? This is good for me to know. So probably the ranking of that policy statements could be reordered and start with reuse, yeah? And Sabi, this could probably be the first good argument to sell it to your C-level managers. There is another one already implemented. This is the confidentiality agreement. I would be surprised if it would not be implemented. So this is good news for us. Identify customer high expertise and customer needs should be prioritized. I think that's making sense as well for me. Yeah. So again, we could put that on the list because the confidentiality agreements and the long-term relationships, they are done already. So the benefits, the quick wins are not as high as identify internal high expertise. Going down, I try to adjust that a little bit, yeah. So continuous learning seems to be implemented, yeah. Skill upgrading as well, and this is good. This should be that way. Knowledge transfer to peer should be prioritized. Teamwork should be prioritized, and identifying and supporting high potential talents should be prioritized as well. I think there's lots for us to win in knowledge management department, and good news that some parts are done by the HR department already. Yeah, let's go down to the ethics and responsibility ideas. Ethics standards are implemented. That's good. Yeah. Just try to reload because now we have 11 responses. Yeah. Reload and go down. On the ethics, nothing changed here. The caring for knowledge management should be prioritized. Yeah, caring. This is the stewardship idea. Yeah, that is interesting for me that you support this idea. And then the operational excellence. I think this is done, obviously. Yeah, because this is what we do a lot. But excellence in innovation should be prioritized, as well as developing sound business processes on the knowledge management part. Now, there's a lot of interpretation, and the headline, I think, is very, very short. So the document I sent you or shared, the 5-pager, is giving a little bit more on details. And I have another one, which is the longer version. I can share that with you on a confidentiality basis. So that means what is actually in it, like Moria was calling, what is the explicit task for me as the steward for this particular session. Yeah. So I think I learned a lot. I got 11 responses. Thank you so much for all of you. Now I stopped my sharing again. Does that make sense to you? Are you surprised? Are you irritated? Would you say nonsense?
I'll help you out. I think that this team that is sitting here represent people that come from academia, from research areas. So, and academia and research, we are working on knowledge. We are developing knowledge. The universities are sending knowledge. So it's rather not typical for regular organizations.
Thank you. I don't know all of you, but I was hoping, I know that Sabi is working for a company, for example. I don't know all of you, but you know, this is the random walk we have in a Zoom talk. You never know who's coming. Yeah. But
I mean, personally, I think it reflects, I mean, even so we all believe in KM, it still shows that we are all struggling to make it happening the way we wish it could happen. And yeah, I think it's yeah, I mean, there's still a long way to go, even so we have been talking about KM for at least 30 years now. That's still not unfortunately a common practice, and yeah, and there is still a long way to go, as Nicola was stating in the comments. Yeah,
Vincent, I'm grateful for your comment, and that's why I would like to share the last slide just as a closing. You know, will not take more time than agreed upon. This should be the last slide, and for me this means that this on the left side is the standard ISO 3041, you know, and I see a lot of connections. Probably we can talk about and argue about the wording, but I see some, you know, formal connections between the ISO 3041 and DIN spec and the requirements in those norms, as well as in knowledge management models, and more they are more or less compatible, or you can exchange them. For me, the crucial part is that there is little contradiction within the policies we implement in the organization and the strategic objectives. If there is a deviation, then we are in trouble. So the integration and the reduction of the discrepancies, this is crucial for me. And I think this is hard work for us as knowledge management supporters or researchers. My next step would be to find out about the extremes, like some opportunistic interpretation and some very collaborative interpretation of those policies, and what would be the implication. You know, there could be some exploitation or abuse of those ideas, and this is what I would like to move on, because if there's obviously a loophole, then, you know, the integration did not work. So that's it, essentially. Thank you so much for your support and for your answers. I'm checking. I even got another one. Thank you. No, we're in 11. Last 3 minutes, Vincent, it's on you.
Yes, yeah, just I mean, just also something out of curiosity. I think having the policy and also observing the level of adoption of this policy could be also very interesting. I mean, it's like a bit like the culture. I mean, you have strong culture and weak cultures in organization, and maybe some organization, once the policy is in place, I mean, maybe based on the culture, some of them might be more likely to adopt it and follow it and right away, where others might be also more likely maybe to ignore it or consider whatever they might feel relevant to it. So that could be also an interesting aspect to research aspect to investigate, to see a bit how this policy events. I mean, step one is to have the policy in place. Step number two is to make sure that everyone embrace it, and that's another challenge too. And maybe there is a bit of change management that might be also required to move to it or to make it happen. But
absolutely, we're closing the gap to the change management and communication part. But you know, I really strive to find out some clear guidelines or policies. Do it like that, and then there's an implication, or this is then you can trust to to accomplish what you wanted to do. Yeah. Or if we just keep talking, culture is important. For me, this is a little bit, draining. Obviously culture is important, but what do you mean with culture? Because with Shine, everything is culture. Like the group here now, 15 people, we have a culture, of dominance, by the way, and I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. Do we have a few questions? We still have 5 minutes. If any of you want to take the mic and ask a question to Manfred, I think it's a great opportunity now to, well, I'm sure you can reach him whenever you would like, but maybe a burning questions.
A small question. Manfred, in what type of organization did you implement this policy? Is it a manufacturing organization, a public sector?
No, it's actually, it's an auditing organization. It's civil engineers. We call them civil engineers, people who are experts to calculate the physics of large bridges, for example. It's civil engineers. Is that the proper term? Yeah. So yes. They have like 60 employees and lots of knowledge in different places and locations, lots of customer knowledge as well. And they are the auditors, like the experts say, yes, you are allowed and safe to drive on that bridge, not the Italian bridge. Yeah. We would like to have stable bridges. Yeah. So it was a knowledge intensive organization, and the other ones are in the automotive supply. So lots of regulation, unfortunately. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Okay, thank you so much. People are leaving, so I think we covered the time, and in I think we're done. Yeah, Vincent.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Manfred, for your great presentation. And I think it opened up a lot of very interesting questions. And thank you so much for sharing also this draft KM policy. I'm sure it will be useful to a lot of people to maybe start thinking about developing one and thinking about how it can maybe affect some of their work.
Great. So published yes, my email, you share. So yes, anybody who is interested,
thank you.
Anybody who wants the PDF of the results of the survey, just send me an email and say survey, and I send it to you. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. And I will send a follow-up. Yes, I will send a follow-up email. I will for sure remind people about your email address. You will have a link to the video if you want to watch it again. And thank you all for joining today. And looking forward to see you again on the 21st of June with David Williams, who will share also his very exciting research. Great. See you all thank you all very much, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.